Welcome to Quick Chain Lessons by Chain Academy. Have you ever made a decision in real life? Like if it's raining, bring an umbrella, otherwise, you won't. Or maybe you've gone to a restaurant and chosen from a menu. If I want pizza, I will do this. If I don't want pizza, then I will choose pasta instead. In programming, we do the same thing using if else statements, switch statements, and logical operators. These tools allows JavaScript to make decisions and control the flow of a program. Instead of running every line from top to bottom, the code can choose different paths depending on the situation. So in this episode, we will learn how to let our programs think, making choices, comparing values, and combining conditions to handle more complex logic. To understand how decisions work in JavaScript, we first need to talk about booleans and conditions. To understand how decisions work in JavaScript, we first need to talk about booleans and conditions. A boolean is the simplest data type. It can only have two possible values, the true or false. If you want to learn more about data types, then watch our previous episode of JavaScript here in Quick Chain Lessons. So a boolean is the simplest of them, which only has two possible values, the true and the false. While a condition is an expression that the computer checks and it also evaluates to either true or false. For example, if we check whether 5 is bigger than 3, the condition will be true. If we check 2 is bigger than 10, the condition is false. These true and false results are what power if else statements, switch cases, and logical operators. They let our programs decide what to do next, just like we make decisions in everyday life. Now let's talk about relational operators. Relational operators are symbols we use in programming to compare two values, variables, or expressions. When we make a comparison, JavaScript checks the relationship between two values and returns a Boolean result, which is either true or false. For example, if we compare 5 is bigger than 3, that is true. If we check 10 is smaller than 2, then technically that is false. So relational operators are the building blocks of conditions. They are how we ask questions like, is this greater? Is it equal? Is it different in our code? Relational operators let us compare two values. Let us look at the most common ones. The first one is the less than. The less than checks if the value on the left is strictly smaller than the one on the right. For example, if 3 will be smaller than 5, and then therefore that is true. The next is greater than. Greater than checks if the value on the left is strictly larger than the one on the right. For example, 10 is greater than 7 is a true statement. Now we have less than or equal to. This is like less than, but it also allows equality. For example, if we declare 5 is less than or equal to 5, therefore it is still true because they are equal. The same thing goes for greater than or equal to. Same idea. So let's say, for example, 8 is equal to 8, then the statement will still be true. These operators are really common when writing conditions because they let us compare numbers or values and decide what the program should do next. Now, we also have relational operators that check for equality and inequality. We have the equal to, which uses equal as a symbol. This checks if the two values are the same. For example, 5 is equal to 5 is true. But keep in mind, it doesn't check the data type very strictly. For instance, a 5, which is a string, is equals to 5 is also true because JavaScript convert the string into a number before comparing. If you want to make it stricter, you need to use 3 equals. Now, the next is not equal to. This is the opposite. It checks if the two values are different. For example, 3 is not equal to 4, then the statement will be true. 5 is not equal to 5, then the statement will become false. These operators are useful for checking if values match or don't match. But in modern JavaScript, we usually prefer the strict versions, which I have mentioned earlier, the tree equal and the not equal equal, which also check that the data types are the same. Now, before we jump into a demo, let us look first at control flow statements, which let us make decisions in our programs. So the first is the if statement, is the most basic one. It checks a condition, and if that condition is true, the code inside the block runs. If the condition is false, the block is skipped and nothing inside it runs. We also have else if. This lets us check multiple conditions in sequence. The program evaluates them one by one, and as soon as it finds the first condition that is true, it runs that block of code and skips the rest. This is really useful when we have several possibilities. For example, if today is Monday, do one thing. Else, if it's Tuesday, then do something else. If it's Friday, then do something special. So the keyword if checks a single condition, while else if let us handle more complex scenarios with multiple conditions. Finally, we have the else statement. You can think of else as the catch-all option. It runs only if none of the previous conditions are true. Unlike if or else if, the else statement does not have a condition of its own. It simply provides a fallback. The code inside it will execute whenever all the earlier conditions fail. For example, if none of the days we check match Monday, Tuesday, or Friday, then the else block might run code that says it's just a regular day. So the else keyword ensures that our program always has a path to follow, even if no specific conditions are met. Now, in order for you to understand it better, let's have a demo in our code. Quick chain episode 7.html. So we missed the previous numbers, so it should be episode number 5, 6, and then 7. However, let's proceed to our discussion. Let's have our boilerplate for HTML. Let's have JavaScript part 3. Then let's have a script tag here. And in our script tag, we will have our JavaScript code. Let's have here type equals to application JavaScript. Okay, next, let's have a review on Boolean. So let's say, for example, let's have a variable here. Let's say is raining equals to true. So this is a Boolean. Let's console.log is raining. And let's have a good layout for a demo. Let's right click this. Let's make this smaller. Let's right click this and let's have the live server and let's display our output. All right. When you try to right click this, inspect console, then we will see that we have the Boolean here. Okay. So that's the Boolean for you. Now let's use the relational operators. Let's say, for example, we are comparing two numbers. Let's have a console.log. And then let's say, let's compare 3. And then we will put here 5. And you will see that this is true. Why? Because 5 is bigger than 3. The same thing goes. If we put here the symbol, we will see that this is false. Because we know that 3 is not bigger than 5. So you can also try the one with the equal sign to have an answer. If we try to change this to 5 and 5 also, then we will still get the true result from our comparison. So that is the logic of an if statement because it will base the output or the logic that it will execute from the comparison that you have set. Now, if we have the relational operators, we also have the equality operators. Let's have, for example, console.log, and let's have here 5 is equal to 5, and then we will get a true as a result. We change this to 6, and then obviously we will get a false as a result. Now, try to make this 5, and let's make this as a string, and you will notice that this is still true But if we try to change this, let's copy, paste, and make it 3 equal, we will make it strict, so it will give us false answer. So that's how easy it is to use relational operators and equality operators. Now let's go to if and else. So let's have first, for example, let day equals to Tuesday. Now let's have the if condition here. If they, we will use an equality operator. So if they is equal to Monday, and then we will have console.log start of the work week. Let's copy this and we will change this to, or we will have else if here, and we will change this to Tuesday. Let's correct the spelling. And then we will put here second day grind. Now, if you want to add more condition, let's have the third else if. We will put here Wednesday and we will put here third day grind. So because our variable is Tuesday, so this condition executes. We try to change it to Monday. The condition will fall on the first logic, which day is equal to Monday. So that will be start of the work week. Now, what about else? Now, this is a fallback. So if we put here else, so if we put console.log ordinary day and then semicolon. Now let's try to change it to, let's say, Thursday, which is not on the first condition, not either in the second condition, and not either to the third condition. So let's have here Thursday, and you will notice that you will have here ordinary day, which is the fallback if none of the conditions is met. Now let's go to logical operators. Logical operators help us to go beyond simple conditions. Instead of checking one thing at a time, they let us combine multiple conditions or modify them. They always work with Boolean values, meaning the result of a logical operation is either true or false. For example, you might want to check if someone is over 18 and has a ticket, or if it's Saturday or Sunday, or simply take a condition and flip it from true to false or false to true. That is exactly what logical operators allows us to do. They're especially powerful inside if statements, loops, and complex conditions because they give your program the ability to make smarter decisions. Let us start with two most common logical operators, the and the or. The and, this operator, returns true only if both conditions are true. If either one is false or if both are false, then the result is false. So think of the AND operator as requiring everything to be true. Next is the OR operator. The OR operator is more flexible. It returns true if at least one condition is true. It only returns false if both conditions are false. So the OR operator works like saying, is this true or that true or both? Together, these two operators let us combine conditions in powerful ways, depending on whether we need all conditions to be true or just one of them. The third logical operator is the NOT operator, written as an exclamation mark. The NOT operator simply reverses a Boolean value. If something is true, then the NOT operator will make it false. If something is false, then the NOT operator will turn it into true. This is really useful when you want to check the opposite of a condition. For example, instead of asking, is it raining? You can ask, is it not raining? So while and or combine conditions, the not operator flips them. Let's have a quick demo of these operators in order for you to understand it more clearer. So let's clean our workplace. Let's have here a comment. Let's have a fresh start. Now let's have, let's say for example, a variable called age, and then we will have a variable called has ticket in order for us to check if the person has a ticket or not. And we will say, for example, this is true. So let's have a condition if age is equal or bigger than 18, and we will also have a second condition which we will use the N operator. So 2 ampersand, and we will have here has ticket equals to true, or you can have a shortcut to just make it has ticket. So it means that the statement is truthy, or it means, in other words, it's true. So if the person is equal to 18 years old or above and has a ticket, therefore, we can print here console.log, please enter the concert. So because the age is 20 and it has a ticket, then therefore we have here please enter the concert. Let's have an else here, and we will put here console.log, you are not allowed to enter. Now, let's try to change, for example, the has ticket variable, and we will make it as false. And you will see here, you are not allowed to enter. Even the first condition is correct, the second condition is not returning true. Therefore, we cannot meet the condition required. So therefore, it will go to the else statement. Now, the OR operator is kind of different. Let's say, for example, let's have here let day equals to Sunday. Let's have here if day equals to Saturday or day equals to Sunday. Then let's have console.log, it's a weekday. Then let's have a fallback, else console.log, it's working day. Let's remove this, we don't need that. All right, so the result is it's a weekday because the day is Sunday. The first condition is obviously false, but the second condition is true. And in the OR operator, when one condition is true, automatically all of the conditions is met. Now let's go to the NOT operator. So technically, it will just negate the result. So technically, the NOT operator will just negate the Boolean. Let's say, for example, let is raining equals to true. Then let's have if condition. If not is raining, let's have console.log, no umbrella needed. Let's have a fallback here. Console.log, better bring an umbrella. Now we'll see that is raining is true, therefore it negates the variable. It turns the is raining from true going into false. That is why our output goes into this, better bring an umbrella. If we try to make it falsy or turn it into a false, and then therefore this will execute no umbrella needed. So technically, it's a negation of your Boolean value. Now let's talk about the switch statement, which is another way to control the flow of a program. A switch statement allows you to choose one block of code to run out of many possible options based on the value of a variable or expression. It works like a menu. You check the value, and depending on what it matches, you run the corresponding block of code. Switch is often used as a cleaner alternative to writing multiple if-else-if statements. Instead of stacking condition one after another, switch lays out all the options in a way that is easier to read and maintain. So whenever you have several possible cases to handle, a switch statement can make your code shorter and more organized. Now, if you're trying to use the switch statement in your code, look at these points to remember. First, a switch statement should have an expression, a variable or expression to check. It should have the case, which it will compare the expression against a possible value. It should also have a break, which it exits the switch after executing a case to avoid fall through. And we should also have a default, which runs if no case matches, which is similar to else. So let's have it in our code. In order for us to start, let us comment all of the codes that we have worked on, and let's have our browser here. So in order for us to start a switch statement, let's have, for example, let, and then day, then let's have here Wednesday, then let's start a switch, then let's have a day. This will be the expression that you will use to apply or compare to a condition. And then let's have the first case or the condition to compare to your expression or variable, which is day in our instance, in our example. Let's have case, let's have Monday, and then If this satisfies the condition or the comparison results into true, then we will console.log start of the week. Then we will have the break in case this code or this logic runs in order to stop the process because we have already fetched what we need from the whole code. And the second case, let's have Tuesday, for example. Then let's have console.log second day grind. And then we will have break. Actually, we can just copy this. And let's say, for example, Wednesday. And then we will put here third day grind. Okay, now we will have a default, which will serve just like the else statement is doing. We will have console.log. It's just a regular day. And we will also have the break here to stop in case this code executes. So let's run this. Just like what you see on the right side, it's Wednesday. So the third day grind, sorry, the misspelling. So the third day grind will be displayed. Let's make it Tuesday. So second day grind. And then let's try to make it Friday and it should fall on the default. So it's just a regular day. That's how easy it is to use the switch statement for your logics inside your code. Thank you for watching Quick Chain Lessons by Chain Academy. If you want more of this, please follow our social media platforms or visit our courses to www.chain-academy.io.